Today I am de-influencing you from all the luxury purchases that you don't need to waste your money on. There is a lot of overhyped luxury out there and I'm embarrassed to say that I've fallen for a lot of it. So in this video I am going to be imparting some of my hard-earned wisdom onto you guys so that hopefully you won't make the same expensive mistakes that I've made. I hope you guys enjoy. So the first offender on my list is the Hermes blanket, and I think this will go down as my biggest waste of money ever. And I wanted it for so long, nothing could convince me this was a stupid purchase, but it is the worst blanket I think I've ever owned. And I own a lot of blankets at varying price points, nothing near as expensive as the Hermes blanket. And it's just the worst one I own by far. Like, it's not even close. I have baby blankets that I bought for £20, which I prefer to the Hermes blanket. And I get how it's very beautiful and it has a kind of aesthetic and it's very Instagrammable, but unless you literally live in like an Instagram home which is never messy and, you know, only designed for looks, it really doesn't have a lot of value beyond the look of it. And I just think it was a colossal waste of money. It's not very comfortable. It's very heavyweight, but like not in a nice way. It's kind of stiff. It's not particularly soft either. Like, my Barefoot Dreams blankets are 1,000 times better and they cost a fraction of the price. So this is one where I'm just like, I was such a sucker, I was so stupid. And if you've been lusting after this and are not sure whether it's worth the money, let me assure you, it is not worth the money. And maybe some of you own this blanket and do think it's worth the money. Let me know if you disagree with me in the comment section, but I just don't think this is simply. It is purely an aesthetic item, which it just doesn't have a whole lot of use in day-to-day life. It's not very practical. I'm constantly concerned about it because it costs so much money. I have 2 kids, a husband and a dog. Like, things don't stay pristine at all. And it was just so expensive. And also, no one really likes using it either. Like, it was just awful. So for me, this was my biggest luxury waste of money ever. I just absolutely hate it. Cannot believe I spent the money on it. Worst buy ever. The second item on my list is also something from Hermes, and funnily enough, I've only actually owned 2 things from Hermes and both of them made this list. My second one are the Hermes Oran sandals. And these aren't as bad as the blanket, but I still don't think that they're worth the money. They aren't particularly comfortable. Like, they're okay, but they're not particularly comfy. They're also quite loud because they have quite a heavy, like, wooden type, like, sole and heel. And so, one, you can hit your other heel unless you're quite careful with walking, which really does hurt. And they have that kind of clip-clop sound as well. And yes, they're kind of cute, but I also wonder if they weren't Hermes, would we actually think that they're cute? I'm not so convinced. So I actually ended up selling mine. I did wear them a fair bit, and I kind of liked them at the time, but looking back, I'm just like, that was one purchase that wasn't worth it. And essentially, they are still a pair of flat sandals. I feel like there's only so luxurious a pair of flat sandals can be. Absolutely paying for the Hermes name and what they are and all that jazz. And I just feel like they were a waste of money. Like, I don't own them anymore for the amount I used them and wore them. I take away like the resale price and I'm left with a multiple £100 delta, and I just don't think they were worth it. I have other sandals which were far cheaper, which I much prefer, that I still have, because they go with everything. They're super comfy, they're practical, I can run after my kids in them, like, they're just great, versus just obscenely expensive sandals which are only that expensive because of the name. Yeah, I just don't think that these are worth money. And yes, they are a classic item, so I guess they have that going for them. But in terms of whether I actually think they're worth it for the individual item merits, I do not, and I think there are much better options out there and much better ways to spend your money if you do want a luxury item that I just think are a better wardrobe investment than the sandals. My next one might be a bit of a controversial one, but it is luxury beauty advent calendars. I know this is more of like a Christmas one, but I feel like they're getting earlier and earlier every year. Last year, I saw some launch in August, which is just insane. And yes, they're technically good value for money, but they're only good value for money if you use all the products. And I have had many beauty advent calendars and I have never used all the products, and a lot of them are just taking up space in my drawers and cupboards, and I don't know what to do with them because they're not products that I'm really interested in using. They're not products I want to use. I have my favorites which I know work and are great. I tend to stick with those. So if you're someone who absolutely uses everything and loves to experiment with beauty, I do think these are a good buy, but I suspect a lot of people are maybe like me where you kind of pick your favorites and the rest never really get used, in which case they just aren't aren't really a great purchase, and so much goes into the packaging. And especially when you get to some of the really luxury ones like Dior and Chanel, I don't even think you're really getting the value for money just in terms of the products there either. So for me, this is one of those items where I've learned over the years to be very, very careful with what I'm actually buying. I really look at the contents, and if it's something where I can actually get better value in terms of the specific products which I already buy and already use and already love, then I'll consider it. But if it's just full of items which I have no idea if I like and it just has a really expensive value on there, I'm much more careful because I just simply don't want more clutter in my cupboards. My next category is luxury luggage, and I was 100% sold the dream of calm, luxurious travel if I had some Louis Vuitton luggage, and that has yet to happen. Like, it just hasn't. Having the expensive luggage adds more to my stress than pretty much anything else because I don't want it to get damaged. I've actually only used my Louis Vuitton suitcase one time, and the one time I did, I took it to London. It was supposed to be lovely weather and it absolutely poured down with rain, and I got water damage all around the vachetta. It did not add any calm or luxury to my trip. It added a lot of stress and heartbreak over having such an expensive item damaged. And it's just not worth it. Like, things happen to luggage. I assume if you travel private, then maybe that's a different case, but even if you travel in business class all the time, your luggage gets bashed about, you know, you constantly have to lift it and handle it and weigh it and pack it, like things are gonna happen to it. And I just don't think this is a category that's worth it. There are also so many great luggage brands now which do completely effective functional luggage, which is great. That costs a fraction of the cost, but which actually genuinely make your life easier in terms of clever functionality and, you know, easy rolling and just so many clever little features, which is actually worth paying for versus just a really expensive monogram, which is going to make your trip more stressful. So I would say this regardless of whether I had kids, but especially with kids now, I don't even consider taking that suitcase with me. And this was just a terrible buy. So unless you are someone who travels private all the time and it simply doesn't matter to you if your £2,000 or £3,000 luggage gets damaged, I would definitely say save your money on something where you actually have more control of the environment. Even put it towards a trip. I think that's a better spend of money. I just wouldn't recommend luxury luggage to anyone. My next one is probably going to be a little bit controversial, but it is Lambskin. And I have this thought about most Lambskin bags. There are some exceptions. My Saint Laurent vanity in Lambskin actually was quite robust, but I'm kind of particularly thinking here about Chanel Lambskin. And I don't think this is worth the cost or the heartache. I don't enjoy babying my bags. I already have enough things to take care of in my life. I don't want to have my bag as another thing that I have to worry about and stress about. And Chanel Lambskin is just delicate. I know there's like a whole contingent of people out there who say that lambskin isn't as delicate as people make out. And I don't think that's true. I've had a lot of lambskin bags. They're really, really delicate, and some are more delicate than others, and generally speaking the rule is that the bigger the surface area is, the more delicate it is. So I've had little SLGs which are lambskin, which are actually surprisingly robust, so it does seem to be the larger bags which are more delicate. But even so, I just stay away from lambskin bags. It doesn't matter how beautiful the bag is or the color is, and it does take color beautifully. For me, I just prefer grain leather, which is white clean. I don't have to stress about it if it gets rained on or I have sticky fingers on there. I just don't have to worry about it. It fits my life, and I don't think lambskin is worth the stress. So it's beautiful from afar, beautiful on maybe other people with more pristine lives, but for me, I don't think lambskin is anywhere close to worth the money. I would always much rather spend my money on something that's durable, but which also stays looking beautiful for many, many years, rather than just adding unnecessary stress to my life. Next up is designer logo loungewear, and it doesn't even have to have a logo on it, albeit a lot of designer loungewear kind of does have a lot of logos on it, but just loungewear or casual wear in general that is designer, I don't get it. And to be fair, I don't own a lot of designer clothing. I'm definitely much more of someone who prefers to spend my money on accessories, bags, shoes, that sort of thing. So I've never really spent a lot of money on super luxury clothing. But that said, the money that I have spent has usually been on a beautifully tailored coat or a blazer, something like that, where you really see the benefit of the fabric, the fit, and the cut. Luxury loungewear, you're not getting the benefit of that. There's only so well cut a sweatshirt or a t-shirt can be. If you're having a logo on it, yes, you're paying for the logo, but you're also just kind of advertising their brand. And I just don't get it. Like, you are absolutely paying for that fashion house's expertise, but you're not actually benefiting from it because you're not buying an item which requires any of that knowledge or know-how. So for me, this is just one category which I don't get, I never have done, and I just think that if you're going to spend on luxury clothing, it should err towards something a little bit more formal, like a coat or a blazer, where you're actually going to benefit from that tailoring, from that expertise, rather than just paying for a logo or some casual wear, which you can essentially get anywhere because it doesn't matter so much about the fit and the cut. Next up, luxury phone cases. I don't understand this as a concept because it has such a short shelf life, because most people, I'd say, probably swap their phone out maybe 2 to 4 years, I'd say. I know some people do it every single year. I usually change my phone 2 to 3 years, I'd say, is my average. And I can't imagine spending a ton of money on a luxury phone case, which will literally be redundant in a few years' time, because phones change. They seem to change the sizing and the little dimensions of a phone every single time they release a new one, which is every single year. So older ones really become outdated very quickly. So there's pretty much no resale market for luxury phone cases. And I just can't imagine spending that much money on something that has such a finite shelf life. Like, it's just crazy to me. Like, whenever I spend money on a luxury item, my hope is that I'll have it for many years. And that's certainly not always the case, but I would never want to buy something that had a luxury price tag with the knowledge that likely within 3 years, it's going to be completely worthless and I might as well throw it out. So anything for me that has a complete end date on that item is just an absolute no. I would much rather spend the money on something that I think I might have in my wardrobe for many, many years, rather than essentially throwing it away. And then last but not least, it is particular outerwear. And here I'm thinking specifically of a Burberry trench coat, which I owned, which I really did like a lot. I had the Chelsea mid-length trench coat, really beautiful, very, very classic, solid fit, nothing wrong with the quality, the fit, or the cut. But it was really, really expensive. I think it was close to £1,000. I've not checked current prices, they could be even more than that now. And I have another trench coat from Mango, which I liked literally just as much. It was cut very nicely, the fit was perfect for me, and it was just a really solid buy, and I think it was just under £100. So since I was not really wearing my Burberry one, I ended up selling it, and the resale value was actually pretty good considering how old it was. But for me, that really illuminated the fact that yes, when you're buying something like a Burberry trench, you're buying their heritage, the fact that you're getting a very iconic product and the cut and the design. But whilst you can definitely spend the money to kind of fast track your way to an item like that, if you do enough digging and hunting and searching, you could absolutely spend a ton less and get something equally as good, because I genuinely had no preference between my Mango trench coat and my Burberry trench coat, and the only difference between them were obviously the labels and the massive gulf in price. So, you know, if you are very, very time poor and have tons of money, then buying something like a Burberry trench is a no-brainer. You're guaranteed the fit and the cut and the quality. But if you do have the time and you want to save some money, you can absolutely do a bit of searching and find something just as good that looks just as chic for a fraction of the cost. So this isn't a blanket rule by any means, but that example really did show me that with a little bit of perseverance, you can get some unbelievably great items, and you can find items which fit beautifully on the high street for a fraction of the cost while still getting that really classic look. So that wraps up my list of luxury items that I don't think are worth the hype. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me down below, and let me know if you would add any of your own to this list as well. I would love to hear about them. As always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.